Antarctica is a vast, forbidding continent surrounding the South Pole. The land is buried under ice hundreds of meters thick, from which gigantic icebergs break away into the Southern Ocean. Into that ocean, on November the 26th, 1910, Captain Robert Falcon Scott and his expedition set off from Dunedin in New Zealand at the start of an attempt to be the first men to reach the pole. It took them 6 weeks to reach the coast of Antarctica, and they dropped anchor in McMurdo Sound. They set up their base camp and began the 12-month preparations for the long journey to the pole. Penguins, when they could catch them, seals and skua birds provided a supply of fresh meat, and they also ate canned pemmican. Pemmican was made by grinding lean dried meat to a fine powder, mixing it with the same weight of fat, and then melting it all down and canning it. It was their main source of meat. They also had flour to make bread and some canned fruits and vegetables that they occasionally served in pies, but they had no other fruits and vegetables. This shortage of fruits and vegetables would later lead them to their deaths. It meant the expedition was short of a vital substance, which we now call vitamin C. Pure vitamin C is a white powder. It tastes acid. When we eat it, this is what it helps to make. Between the muscles in meat, you'll find this fine material called collagen. Collagen holds the muscles in place. Now, if you pull off a tiny piece of collagen and tease it out on a slide, when you look at it under a microscope, you can see that it's made up of fine fibres. These are collagen fibres. You also find collagen fibres in the tendons which join muscles to the bones. The fibres lie parallel and close together. Tendons are important because when the muscle contracts, it pulls on the tendon and bends the joint. Without collagen, muscles won't work properly, and to make collagen, our bodies need vitamin C. Collagen fibres also help fasten our teeth in place. Without collagen, without vitamin C, they loosen and finally drop out. And collagen fibres help wounds to heal. When our flesh is damaged, a scar forms, which is made up of a mesh of collagen fibres spun across the wound. Without vitamin C, wounds won't heal, and often older, partly healed wounds open up. Vitamin C is also important in intercellular cement, a very complicated substance that helps to hold together the cells in our bodies. It's particularly important in the walls of capillaries, those microscopic tubes that carry blood into our flesh. When the intercellular cement is weak because of a shortage of vitamin C, just a slight knock and the walls of the capillaries break open. Blood flows out and collects in a patch under the skin, forming a bruise. So, vitamin C is essential if our bodies are to work properly. Now, Captain Scott had never heard of vitamin C. In 1910, which isn't very long ago, it hadn't been discovered. So when he and his 4 companions, Wilson, Evans, Oates and Bowers, who made up the final party, when they set out to walk the last 150 miles to the pole, Scott thought they had enough of the right kind of food. He wrote in his diary, "We have 5½ units of food, practically over a month's allowance for 5 people. It ought to see us through." This was their daily allowance. Each man had 16 ounces, about 450 grams of biscuits, about 330 grams of pemmican, 80 grams of sugar, 18 grams of tea, 12 grams of cocoa, 50 grams of butter, and occasionally a few raisins. None of these contain any vitamin C. Anyone who eats a really good diet builds up a store of vitamin C, which, if they don't eat any more of it, can last up to 6 months. But one thing drains our store of vitamin C very quickly: stress. And Scott and his companions suffered from 2 kinds of stress. First, they were physically stressed, because Scott had decided to man-haul the heavy sledge rather than use dogs. Then they were mentally stressed. When they arrived at the pole on the 17th of January 1912, it wasn't a happy occasion. They had been beaten by Amundsen, the Norwegian explorer, who had arrived first nearly a month ahead of them. This was an enormous disappointment, and when they camped that night, Scott wrote, "Great God, this is an awful place, and terrible enough for us to have laboured to it without the reward of priority. Now for the run home and a desperate struggle. I wonder if we can do it." Already suffering from the effects of their inadequate diet, they faced the long walk back, and although Scott knew nothing about the lack of vitamin C, his diary tells the effects. The first signs were of tiredness. January 22nd, "I think about the most tiring march we have had, solid pulling the whole way. This is tremendous labour." Then he describes injuries that wouldn't heal. January 30th, "Wilson has a strained tendon in his leg. It has given pain all day and is swollen tonight. Evans has dislodged 2 fingernails. His hands are really bad. His cuts and wounds suppurate." Then there was muscular weakness. February 14th, "We are not pulling strong, probably none of us. Wilson's leg still troubles him, but the worst case is Evans. He is really broken down." The last entry in Scott's diary is dated March 29th. "We shall stick it out to the end, but we are getting weaker, of course, and the end cannot be far. It seems a pity, but I do not think I can write more. Last entry. For God's sake, look after our people." This cairn marks the spot where the last survivors of the expedition died, and there's no doubt that they all suffered from a condition called scurvy. Scurvy, caused by the lack of vitamin C, was one of the main causes of all their deaths. Scurvy used to be very common all over northern Europe, especially towards the end of the long, harsh winters. It was always worse at the end of the winter because winter meant 3 to 4 months without fruit or vegetables. Sailors on long, slow voyages also suffered terribly from scurvy. In 1497, Vasco da Gama, sailing round the Cape of Good Hope, found a new route to the East Indies, but on the way, scurvy killed 100 of his 160 men. Magellan, on his journey to becoming the first man to sail round the world, noted that his men began to fall sick 3 months and 20 days from home. Scurvy was well known 400 years ago, but it wasn't until 200 years later that the cure for it was finally worked out scientifically and published in 1753 in A Treatise of the Scurvy, an inquiry into the nature, causes and cures of that disease, by James Lind, M.D., Fellow of the Royal College of Physicians in Edinburgh. Lind took 12 patients with scurvy and tried 6 suggested cures. One pair was given a quart of cider a day, another 25 drops of oil of vitriol, that's another name for sulphuric acid, a third pair 2 spoonfuls of vinegar 3 times a day, the fourth half a pint of seawater every day, and the 5th pair was given a fearful concoction of garlic, mustard seed, horseradish, balsam of Peru, and gum myrrh. It was only the 6th pair who were cured, and in only 6 days, and they had been given 2 oranges and a lemon every day. This was the first time that the ideas for scurvy cures had been tested scientifically. However, it wasn't until 1928, 200 years after Lind, that this man, a Hungarian called St. George, extracted vitamin C and saw it for the first time as a pure substance. But at that time he didn't know what it was, nor could he guess that it had anything to do with scurvy. The connection between his discovery and scurvy was made later with the help of the guinea pig. Guinea pigs, like us, are one of the few animals that can get scurvy. Almost all other animals make their own supply of vitamin C. Using guinea pigs to test out the new substance, it was soon discovered that it cured scurvy. We need only small amounts of vitamin C if we eat some every day. The official recommendation is 30 milligrams, but most nutritionists say that 50 milligrams a day is a good starting point. That's 1/20th of a gram. The table in the teacher's notes shows you what portion size you'll need to eat to get the daily 50 milligrams. Boiled sprouts, 120 grams, and those 120 grams would do it. Oranges, 100 grams. You get that from a medium-sized orange. But if you go for boiled carrots, you would have to eat 1,200 grams. So a more normal 100-gram portion wouldn't give you very much vitamin C. You'd have to eat 1,250 grams of canned peaches to get 50 milligrams. And another favourite, canned pears, well, you'd spend all day trying to eat your way through 5,000 grams if you depended on them for your daily allowance. So when you're thinking of buying canned fruit, always check the vitamin C content. Gooseberries would be a much better buy, especially during the winter. The best source of vitamin C in our table is parsley, but is it really one of the star buys you should be looking out for? And what about blackcurrants? They have a very short season and can be expensive, although you need very little. Peppers can be rather expensive, but they are cheaper in the summer and worth considering. Oranges are available all the year round, although they're not exactly cheap. Canned or cartoned orange juice is much cheaper, and so is frozen. All frozen fruits and vegetables contain about the same amount of vitamin C as fresh, but they're not always cheap. The really good, cheap sources of vitamin C are raw cabbage, cauliflower and sprouts. Even when they're boiled, they're still very good value. Now, I know these vegetables aren't everybody's favourites, but it is possible, and it's well worth your while, to train yourself to like them. They really are too good a source to waste, and good recipes are a great help. Cauliflower with a sauce of pureed onions and canned tomatoes. Brussels sprouts with sweet corn, lean bacon and a few peanuts. The sweet corn makes the sprouts taste less bitter. And here are two raw cabbage dishes you might like. Red cabbage with apple, peanuts and dried apricot, and white cabbage with kidney beans and raisins. And one point to note, with chopped raw vegetable recipes, you should use an acid vinegar dressing. We'll see why later. Now, the figures in the tables were worked out using a blue substance called dichlorophenol indophenol, or DC-PIP for short. You can get DC-PIP powder from scientific suppliers and use it for comparing fruit juices. It's easy to do, but needs care as it is poisonous. First, make a solution of DC-PIP in water. You need only a small amount and you don't have to be exact, just enough to give not too dark a colour. Pour equal amounts into 2 test tubes. First, using orange juice. Put 1 drop into one of the test tubes and give it a gentle shake to mix it up. Then a second drop, and you'll notice the blue colour beginning to change. A third drop and the blue colour changes to pink. A fourth drop and the pink colour disappears. Keep a record of how many drops it takes for all the colour to disappear. This is peach syrup from a can of peaches. I know it has less vitamin C than orange juice, so I'm going to start straight away with 4 drops. The syrup is heavy and sinks to the bottom, so it needs more than a gentle shake to mix it up. Now another 4 drops. And it's gone pink. I found that my sample needed 20 drops before all the colour had disappeared. You can test other drinks and juices in this way, and it's best each time to compare them to orange juice. Then you can display your results like this. The more drops of fruit juice, the weaker the source of vitamin C. Now, one of the things to remember about the figures in the table is that they are arrived at by testing several samples of each food and taking the average. This is particularly important to remember because some fruits and vegetables take a long time to reach us. It's not like vegetables straight from the garden. The food may be bruised or damaged, wilted, or just a bit aged without showing it. And end-of-season ones can have a lot less vitamin C than new-season ones. Vitamin C is destroyed even faster when fruits and vegetables are cut, because cutting and slicing, well, they're a really drastic form of damage. This salad may look attractive, especially to those who don't understand nutrition. But really, this is how not to prepare a salad if you want to preserve the vitamin C. This elaborate cutting and arranging may well impress people with your manual skill, or please party guests by showing you've taken trouble. But if you serve salad like this to your family regularly, you can't expect them to get much vitamin C from it. Once vegetables are cut, they are damaged, and once they are damaged, the vitamin C is steadily destroyed. Many salads like this are made earlier in the day, or even the day before, But no refrigerator or plastic box with a cover, however well it seals, can stop the loss. So, what is the best way to prepare a salad if you want to preserve the vitamin C? First, make a dressing using a safe polyunsaturated oil and vinegar. Cut each vegetable quickly and mix it straight into the dressing. The acid vinegar helps preserve the vitamin C. Red cabbage for colour, especially in the winter when tomatoes are expensive. Watercress is a good idea. It's high in vitamin C. Finally, after washing and draining the lettuce, just tear each leaf to the size you want. And there it is, made in a few minutes. No fancy cutting, no hanging around, high in vitamin C and straight onto the table. And here's another example of good practice. A small amount of water brought to a fast boil. Chop the cabbage quickly, then a little at a time straight into the boiling water, making sure the water keeps on the boil. Then put the lid on to keep the heat in. And why is this good practice? Well, once you cut the cabbage, the vitamin C begins to be destroyed. If you then drop it into cold water and start to warm it up, that's how you lose a lot of vitamin C. This is what happens. When it's cold, the vitamin C is being destroyed, but only slowly. As the water gets hotter, the rate at which the vitamin C is destroyed begins to increase. In the middle temperatures, the rate of destruction is highest. But as the temperature gets nearer to boiling, once you've got over the hump, the destruction rate slows right down. It's the middle temperatures that are dangerous. So you should aim at keeping the water boiling. Then the cabbage heats up and gets over the hump as fast as possible. And the other point, why should you use just a little water? Well, it's not that a lot of water destroys vitamin C. It just means that more of it can swim out of the cabbage into the water. With a small amount of water, only a little vitamin C swims out. And if you use this water to make gravy, you lose only a very little. So you can make sure of keeping most of the vitamin C in food by choosing the right method of cooking. And sometimes we get a bit of extra help. Orange juice contains a lot of vitamin C. It also tastes acid. And there's the clue. Do you remember the salad? Acid helps preserve vitamin C. All citrus fruits are acid. And so are canned tomatoes, tomato juice, bottled and canned gooseberries, and they're all good sources of vitamin C. Now the real test for most of us comes during the late winter months. Winter stresses use up some of our store of vitamin C. And because fresh fruits and vegetables are sometimes scarce and often expensive, our store of vitamin C, which should be kept up, is in danger of running down. The first signs that we're a bit low are tiredness and weariness, and when we get a cold it seems to last a long time. We can also suffer from all sorts of aches and pains which we don't really know how to explain. All these signs can point to a shortage of vitamin C, though some illnesses do need a doctor. One way to help out during the winter is to look around for the cheapest 50 milligram vitamin C tablets and take one of these every day. There's no point in taking more than one. However, if you have a really bad cold, then you could take half a one of these fizzy tablets, which will give you a large 500 milligram dose. But tablets should be a last resort. The best way to get your vitamin C all the year round is from the right fruits and vegetables.